welcome all to the 35th episode of the Angelo Grosso podcast. I may just call it the Angelo Grosso podcast. You know, I got a bunch of names that I'm throwing around, some of my friends, getting some good feedback, some not so good. I got a couple ideas, new ideas, because every week I swear to God there's new ideas, and then I mold them. I send them around a few of my trusted friends, and then I report back in my brain, and then I'm like, I hate all of the podcast names. So these are the current ones that I am still deciding on. Dank Times, Danker Thoughts. A little unprofessional with the word dank, but I think it sums up this podcast pretty good. Come Inside Angelo, sexual innuendo there. The World Through Angelo, kind of boring. Pump Your Brakes. I kind of like that one. I'm surprised that's not taken. Although now that I said it on here, some bastard's gonna take it. But fingers crossed, baby. I'm about ready to light up a joint here. This is Space Dog. This dog is spelled D-A-W-G. I think I've had Space Dog before. I've definitely had joints, or strains, I should say, that have the word dog in them. Chem Dog is another one. Kind of a related strain to Kimmy Jones, which I've been smoking the last couple times I've recorded. So, this is going to be kind of a political heavy podcast only because, it kind of fits the times. We have a new president. The inauguration went through with no problem. Besides those anarchists in Seattle and Portland. I mean, they're pissed at everybody. But besides that, we got to celebrate. There was no violence, no bloodshed. There was no civil war. Every store was out of ammunition. But you know what? None of it was used. So I'm happy about it, and so should you. So light up a joint with your boy here. Let's go. Oh, baby. Woo. Fun times. Oh, man, that's strong. That little boy is strong. Oh, that's strong. All right. So, yes, like I just said, we have a new president. Joe Biden gave a decent commencement. Holy shit, the joint's already hitting me. He gave a decent inauguration speech. I tell you who blew it away. Oh, what's that black girl's name? Let me look it up here. She gave the... I don't know what you want to call it. Like, she was a poet, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, poet Amanda Gorman. Check that one out. She was amazing. I wish she was president. Based on that speech alone, she was excellent. So, yeah, Trump woke up, did a bunch of stupid shit on his last day of office, got on a helicopter. Well, let me back up. He gave a speech where he just said, we did amazing things. We did some amazing things. Let's let the First Lady speech. And then, Count Dracula went up there and she said something that no one could understand for about 30 seconds. Then she walked behind Trump again. And Trump started waving his tiny hands around and talking about, we had the best administration, the best people work for us. I'm so excited for what we've done. And then he boarded the plane with the lowest approval rating ever in the history of presidents, beating George Bush, George Bush is somehow beloved by everyone, forgetting that he's a warmonger, in my opinion, and a war criminal, but that's just me. And so then, yeah, the inauguration lasted all goddamn day. I had to turn it off after a couple hours because it was getting pretty cringeworthy with the coverage, acting like Joe Biden is some goddamn saint. But you know what? I'm pulling for him. I like some of his appointees. I like some of his aspirations, and I gotta say, his day one... what did he do on his day one? What are they called? His, oh yeah, I'm too stupid. This joint hit me hard, guys. I'm so sorry. I did order some dinner, so I'm smoking this joint on an empty stomach, and I did go for a jog about an hour and a half ago, so I'm a little lightheaded here. Executive action. That's the phrase I was trying to come up with. So, on day one, Joe Biden did 17 executive actions, and we're gonna go down one by one and briefly discuss each one. Why? Because I find it important. We should know what our president is doing. We shouldn't, obsess over it, politics shouldn't be the only thing you're excited about in your life. You shouldn't lead your life politics first. You know, you shouldn't bring it up no matter where you are with strangers or friends or family when it's not right. But you should be, you know, somewhat educated of what's going on. And I think this is a good start. So let's go down the list. Now, I'm not going to spend like 20 minutes on each one, maybe 30, 40 seconds on each one, because there are 17 of the motherfuckers. So, number 1, he signed an executive order requiring masks on all federal property. He is ordering a nationwide mask wearing and social distancing mandate on federal lands, federal buildings, and for federal employees and contractors. Seems pretty common sense to me. Number 2, rejoin the World Health Organization, the WHO. I spoke about this a couple podcasts ago when I was talking about how I kind of liked Trump pulling us out initially, and then I got some more information, did some more research, talked to a little bit more people, and I realized it probably wasn't a good thing. I still have my concerns about the WHO, but it's a very important organization that we need to have a say in things. But they got to clean up their act. They're basically sucking China's dick, but who isn't these days? But let's talk a little bit about what he's doing with the WHO. Biden canceled Trump's move to withdraw the country from the WHO, and an early show of commitment to the global health body, he sent infectious disease expert Fauci to speak at the WHO's virtual board meeting Thursday morning. Hey, paisano Fauci. Okay, good for you, Fauci. Let's hope you don't lie over there. Executive order number 3. I kid, I love Fauci. Set up a COVID office that reports directly to Biden. A little strange. I don't know why Biden's leading it. He looks like he's going to die from COVID any minute. But Biden creates a White House COVID-19 response team led by some jabroni that will coordinate across the federal government and with states on ramping up vaccinations, distributing masks, gloves, expanding testing capacity, reopening schools, durka. It also reestablishes the National Security Council Directorate for Global Health Security and Biodefense, a office disbanded by the Trump administration. I can't really say good or bad on this one. It's good that we have a COVID office, and it's good that we're reopening things that's going to help get this motherfucker under control. But I don't know who's leading this thing. His name is Jeff Zients, Zients. I don't know this mook. He could be good, he could be bad. And it's reporting directly to Biden. I guess that's good because I just hope Biden is well versed on what's going on. Like, he needs to be well versed by the doctors and, you know, people like Fauci actually know what's going on. Executive order number 4. Extend foreclosure and eviction moratoriums. How do you say that word? moratoriums. I always thought it was moratoriums, eviction moratoriums, but there's like more to the word. Moratoriums. Extend foreclosure and eviction moratoriums. See, moratoriums doesn't sound like a word to me. Anyway, that's good. I don't know why we don't bail out everybody. And we pay all the landlords, we pay everybody's rent, get everybody caught up. We have the money. I don't want to hear about that bullshit. Executive order number 5. Free student debt collection. That's good. I would just get rid of student debts completely. I would make college free, but that's just me. Actually, I should rephrase. I would make community colleges and trade colleges free. And I would make universities more affordable. You shouldn't have to go into bankruptcy. By the way, that metaphor, that analogy doesn't even make sense what I was about to say, because even if you declare bankruptcy, the student loan follows you. I don't understand how that's legal. All your other debt is washed away except student loans, which is probably the number 2 reason why people do bankruptcy behind healthcare reasons, and don't even get me started on that. So, student debt collection and the freezing of that's good. Executive order number 6, rejoin the Paris Climate Accords. This is, of course, amazing, no matter what that cocksucker Ted Cruz has to tell you. Executive order number 7, revoke the permit for the Keystone Pipeline and canceling other Trump administration energy rules. Fantastic! Again, Ted Cruz was defending the Keystone Pipeline. Why don't you go out there and fucking do the job, Ted Cruz? You commie fuck. Biden revoked the presidential permit for the $8 billion Keystone Pipeline. See, there's the money right there. $8 billion. Why don't you put that $8 billion to helping the college kids, the student loan debt kids, helping these evictions and fucking rent. Just pay it all off. There's $8 billion you're going to give to a fucking pipeline for fossil fuel. You boomer dumb fucks. Ugh. Anyway. We all know what the Keystone Pipeline is, right? It's that pipeline from Canada across the U.S. that just shoots across crude oil and all that garbage. Anyway, but we should go into this eviction. Motherfucker, I am high as a kite. We should go into this executive order a little bit because it's not just the pipeline. Biden revoked the presidential permit for the $8 billion Keystone Pipeline that would have transported fossil fuels from Canada across the U.S., a project climate activists have protested for years. Yeah, because they have a goddamn brain on their shoulders. The order also directs federal agencies to start revising, good God, other Trump administration rules, including restoring protections and banning drilling in several national parks and national monuments and setting stricter emissions and fuel economy standards for vehicles. Thank you. Thank you. If this is the only thing Joe Biden does, I'm a fan. And this is amazing. That's so important. Executive Order number 8, nixing the 1776 Commission, which I guess was in response to the New York Times 1776 thing. Oh, wait. Did I just repeat myself? This was in response to something, wasn't it? Yeah. Biden terminated the Trump administration's 1776 Commission, a project aimed at promoting a more conservative history curriculum in U.S. schools that existed for only a few months. The group released a report on Martin Luther King Jr. that contained several inaccuracies and paragraphs lifted from other published works. This executive order also directs all federal agencies to create an action plan within 200 days to address unequal barriers to opportunity in agency policies and programs. I don't understand that one. It also undoes the Trump administration's policy that prohibited federal contractors and some grant recipients that conduct any form of race or sex stereotyping, including diversity training. Wow, you didn't have to do any of that shit under Trump? That just is fitting. That's of course, because he can't grab him by the pussy if you have to go through that training. But wasn't this 1776 Commission in response to something else? Because the New York Times did that. Was it the 1420 Project or 1620 Project? Or, you know what? I gotta look that shit up. It's bugging me. New York Times. Is it 1776 Commission? In response to New York Times. Yeah, but it was in response to New York Times, wasn't it? Yeah, the 1619 Project. See, I wasn't wrong. 1619, that's what it was. Because I read this New York Times 1619 thing that was supposed to be amazing, and I could see why it was divisive. And I can't speak about it because I need to reread it. It's been a couple years. But is that the 16? Am I talking about the thing? Am I right here? Okay. My point is, I'm sorry, I'm not making any sense here. The 1776 Commission was in response, I believe, to a New York Times article writing about what America was like before colonialists got there and why we should be teaching the right history, which is that our founding fathers were slave owners, Christopher Columbus was a homicidal, genocidal maniac, and just basically whitey bad, everyone else good. And I'm condensing it, and that's not exactly accurate, but that's what a lot of pundits were saying. So, and I'll be honest, like I said, I read the article a couple years ago, and I would need to reread it, so... anyway, this is just about history in schools, this 1776 Commission, which I think our public schools, private, hey, they can make their own rules, unfortunately. But in public schools, I would like history to be taught saying, yeah, founding fathers, Christopher Columbus, they did a lot of awful things. They believed in a lot of awful things. However, back in those days, it wasn't that wrong. And it's kind of stupid to look at history through hindsight or through today's lenses. It doesn't make a lot of sense. What I like to do is look at history through a topical lens, and that way you can say, okay, that's what they did back then. This is where we are now. We have the same kind of issues. Let's use history for the successes, but let's acknowledge where we went wrong and where it was just awful. Let's acknowledge the racism, the genocide stuff. We need to acknowledge that. Don't shy away from it. Embrace it, but also say, Hey, without Christopher Columbus, we may not have had the colonialism impact on America. We may not have been here. And you can say colonialism is bad. Of course, it's bad in a lot of ways, but it also got us to here. So, let's move on. Executive Order number 9. Unwind Trump's changes to the census. I don't know what the fuck's going on with the census. I don't understand why some people are for or against it. I'll be honest. Biden signed an order revoking the Trump administration efforts to exclude undocumented immigration from the U.S. Census, a change that would have weakened federal representation for diverse areas generally represented by Democrats. Oh, well, that's what it is. The order also ensures that census takers have enough time to obtain an accurate count of the population, reversing the Trump administration's move to cut the work short. So all this is, we want to get an accurate census of everybody living in America, legal or illegal, which I think is good. Executive Order number 10. Strengthen legal protection for Dreamers. I'm all for that. Probably don't need to go into it, but you know what Dreamers are, right? It's the DACA kids, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Yeah, and I understand racist people don't like it, but sorry, we won the election, and we tend to be less racist than the previous administration, which tend to be more racist. Executive Order number 11. Abolish the Muslim ban. Another example of what I was just talking about. Biden got rid of the Trump administration's ban on people from several majority Muslim countries entering the United States, a policy the new administration blasted as rooted in religious animus and xenophobia. I would agree. The order also instructs the State Department to restart visa processing for the countries affected by the ban. Good on ya. If you want to stop terrorists coming in here, ban Saudi Arabia, baby. Never gonna happen. Executive Order number 12. Cancel the Trump administration's Interior Enforcement Rule. And I don't know what the fucking Interior Enforcement Rule, so let's read about it. Biden revoked a Trump executive order that massively expanded immigration officials' interior enforcement work and broadened the categories of who they should try to detain and deport. His acting DHS secretary then issued a memo pausing deportations for 100 days. Oh, yeah, so it just is a wider net of people that can be deported, is what I take from that. So I really don't have an opinion on that. I need more information. Executive Order number 13. Halt the construction of the U.S.-Mexico border wall. Again, waste of money that could be spent elsewhere, you dummies. Biden declared an immediate termination of the national emergency declaration that the Trump administration used to divert federal funding to build the U.S.-Mexico wall and ordered a pause on its construction while the new administration reviews the funding and contracts. So it could still get done, just not the way Trump wants it done. We don't need a fucking wall. It's my opinion. Executive Order number 14. We're on the home stretch here, people. Extend deportation protections for Liberians. Now, I don't know what's going on in Liberia, but it's probably not good. Biden signed an order extending the Deferred Enforced Departure designation for Liberians who have been in the U.S. for many years until June 30th, 2022. Then they get the fuck out. Shielding them from deportation and extending their work authorization until then. Trump had threatened to terminate the program, which would have put the status of about 4,000 Liberians in jeopardy. And I'm sure if they got sent back to Liberia, I'm sure they'd be welcomed back with open arms. Executive Order number 15. Banning workplace discrimination against LGBT employees. Hey, where's the Q? You know what? I don't get the Q in LGBTQ. I get L as lesbian, I get G as gay, I get B as bi, and I get T is transgender. Not transsexual. See, I'm woke. The Q was queer. And I don't know what queer means. Queer means confused? Well, shit, I know most straight people I know are confused. So, I don't know what the Q means. Maybe someone who identifies as a Q can enlighten me, a beta cuck soy boy. But let's get into this banning workplace discrimination. Biden signed an executive order making it clear that his administration interprets the Civil Rights Act of 1964, probably should update that, as prohibiting workplace discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. The order also directs federal agencies to make sure existing laws banning sex discrimination also prohibit discrimination against gay, bisexual, and transgender workers. Fantastic. I'm all for it. Executive issue number 16. Implement an ethics pledge for all executive branch officials. Biden signed an ethics pledge and ordered every appointee in the executive branch to do so as well. The pledges cover both a ban on political interference with the Justice Department and a ban on all officials using their office for their own personal gain. I love it. Lastly, but not leastly, freezing Trump's midnight regulations. Now, what the fuck is a midnight regulation? Sounds like a yacht rock band from the 70s. Biden signed an order that will freeze all Trump administration regulations currently in process, blocking them from taking effect while the new administration reviews them. All it is Trump, a one last fuck you to America and the government. He did a bunch of shit the night before he was kicked out of, or not kicked out, before his presidency ended. So they were just stopping all of that shit. Like, all right, let's just take a look at what the fat man said. So yeah, those are, in summary, the 17 day one executive orders that our new President Joe Biden has done. And I know he's doing plenty more in the coming days. I'm recording this, it's Friday, and so he's probably done a lot since then, but I'm not going to spend this whole podcast talking about Joe Biden's executive orders because I'd rather take a bath with a microwave. But, when I read all this shit, just the repeals of the Trump era stuff makes Biden a damn good president in my eyes. And I have to question, why is he so good just by reversing the last administration's efforts? Because that's how low the bar is. Trump has set the bar so low that just undoing a few of his things makes the following president look amazing. So, I truly, truly, truly am glad that Donald Trump lost the presidency and got impeached for the second time, and he may not ever be able to hold any kind of political office again, and I hope his kids don't either. On the other side of my brain, I do hope that he starts this new political party he's talking about, the Patriot Party, because I don't think a lot of Republican voters are going to go over there. The MAGA crew absolutely will, but the moderates and some of the evangelicals, they're not going to go over there. And I think the Republican base would lose about 25% of their base, however, which would hurt the Republicans overall, and they may never win an election again, which I'm all for, until I remember that the Democrats would then always be winning, which scares me as well. Not as much as the Republicans. Got to make that point across for some of my liberal cuck friends that I love. I can't make fun of liberal cucks because I'm a progressive liberal cuck. What's the difference? So it really just boils down to how Trump would have won, in my opinion, so easily, and none of these things would have been repealed. And the next 4 years or the next couple years in America in general would be, in my opinion, just a divisive train wreck. Whereas under the new administration, we're still going to be divisive, but at least the train wreck is slow moving. So we may have time to make the adjustments. We have a little bit more time. Whereas I think another 4 years of Trump, the train wouldn't have time. In fact, it would speed up and it would be a Herculean explosion. But I truly do believe that if Trump just did 4 things in 2020, he would have won. And I think he may even won in a landslide. All he needed to do was have a better pandemic response right away. Listen to the experts, listen to what other countries are doing, and do it swiftly. I mean, he would have won right there, just off the first one. If he would have condemned all the riots immediately, and I'm talking about the George Floyd police brutality protests and the ones that happened with his prodding, which who knows if they even would have happened. But let's just say, in this dream world scenario, where you have the looting and the fires and just the damage and the fucking craziness that the police brutality riots, some assholes were doing, a very small minority. And then let's say we did have more riots. Let's say we had a couple other Charlottesvilles or some shit. I don't know. I'm just making shit up. But let's just say there was a quote-unquote far left and a far right riot. And if Trump just said, hey, that's bad, and leave it at that, it would have been okay. And lastly, the stimulus checks. he didn't really give a fuck about the $2,000 checks until the election was already done for. So if he was fighting hard for stimulus checks the entire time, like a lot of other politicians, like my boy Bernie was, we'd be having another 4 years of Donald, and God only knows after that, 8 years of Ivanka or Tucker Carlson. Fuck if I know. So yeah, Trump would have won if he just would have done the stimulus checks and pandemic response. Anyway, let's leave the world of politics. I'm going to hit this joint again and really blast off into outer space. And yeah, hope you come with me. All right, let's switch gears to everyone's other favorite topic that I talk about, sports. I haven't talked about sports in a while. At least it feels like that. I know I didn't talk about it last podcast for whatever reason. Or maybe I did. Guys, I don't know. My dinner is late and I've smoked a quarter of this joint. I'm seeing triple of everything. I can see behind me even though I'm looking forward. I'm feeling good. So, let's talk about the divisional round. Now, if everyone remembers correctly, I picked the Packers over the Rams. I picked the Buffalo Bills over the Baltimore Ravens, the Chiefs over the Browns, and the Saints over the Buccaneers. And I went 3 out of 4. Not too bad. The only team that went against my picks was Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating New Orleans in New Orleans. And I tell you, Drew Brees, you look washed up. You look as bad as Ben Roethlisberger the week before. So, what I think is going to happen, Drew Brees and Roethlisberger are going to retire. And Phillip Rivers has already retired. So you have 3, dare I say, Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame. I mean, those 3 are pretty big. If you look at like the top 20 all-time quarterbacks, Drew Brees is definitely in there. Roethlisberger and Rivers outside looking in, but you could really argue that Rivers and Roethlisberger, at least in the last 20 years, are top 5, top 7 quarterbacks. And I hate Roethlisberger with the heat of Mordor. I meant to say Mount Doom, obviously. Fucking hell. So what I think is going to happen, I think the Saints are going to have both Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston as quarterbacks next year, and they're going to just switch off their hot hand, and whoever's playing better is going to play the most. And if it is Winston, I still think Hill's going to get in there some gadget plays, maybe 5-7 times a game. For the Steelers, if Roethlisberger retires, I don't think they have a current quarterback on their roster. They may draft one, but they're drafting late in the first because of the playoffs. So if they were going to trade for one, I wouldn't be surprised if they trade for a quarterback that's on the trading block, such as a Gardner Minshew, a Sam Darnold. Hell, maybe they would even sign Mitchell Trubisky to a cheaper deal, and then they could draft a quarterback if whoever's left on the board in the first round or second or third round. Because I don't think, what's the guy's name that Myles Garrett curb stomps? That quarterback, I forget his name. And I think they have Josh Dobbs, but he ain't nothing. So those are my, maybe, you know what? You know who would be a good quarterback for the Steelers? I think would be a Cam Newton if he's healthy and got his shit together. I just think that New England Patriot offense had a bunch of scrubs, and a lot of their defensive stars were sitting out for COVID reasons. So I don't know. Maybe Cam will stay in New England. I don't know. It depends what happens with the COVID players coming back and the draft and the salary cap, because that shit's going to be smaller than years past. So there's gonna be teams crunching all over the league. And then what was the other team? Oh, the Colts. I really think the Colts are going to trade for Carson Wentz, because Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator in Philly for Carson Wentz MVP year, or he almost got the MVP, and the Super Bowl year. I believe Frank Reich was that year too. So Wentz has success with him. But the Eagles did hire as their head coach the offensive coordinator from the Colts from Indianapolis, so maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they'll trade for one of those other quarterbacks that are on the trading block. I don't know, people. I don't know. Like I said, I'm circling Saturn right now, and so some things are getting jumbled. But I gotta say, still, my bets were pretty good. 3 out of 4. The Chiefs barely beat the Browns, and you know what? The Browns, I think, would have beat the Chiefs pretty easily if they just ran the ball. You have two dynamic running backs in Cleveland, Chubb and who's the guy that curb stomped that chick in the hotel? Kareem Hunt. I can feel where Kareem Hunt was coming from. She was talking a lot of shit. He was telling her stop, 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 stop. She kept charging and saying shit, and then he pushed her on the ground. She kept talking shit, and that's when he went too far. He should have just, after the initial push and she fell over, leave it. Nope, you had to go back, Kareem. I want to know what she said though. What did she say? Anyway, that's equality for you. But yeah, I really think Buffalo is going to beat Kansas City when I get to my conference championship picks, because Kansas City is a very beatable team. They are an extremely lucky team. I was just looking this up. Patrick Mahomes had like 12 or 14 dropped interceptions this year. And yeah, you have an amazing tight end in Kelsey. You got a damn good receiver in Tyreek Hill. And Mahomes he's a magician. But I think they're a very beatable team. And Buffalo has the defense that can beat them. And I don't know why teams think they have to get in a shootout with the Kansas City offense. Run the ball. Dink and dunk. Do slants. Do bubble passes. Do screens. Get small chunk yards. That way you keep their offense on the sideline. And then you do play action every now and then. But come on, man. They're not that superstar of a team. They're not that unbeatable. But I tell you, I going back to the NFC, I don't think any team's going to beat the Packers. The Green Bay Packers look legit. I think they could slaughter Tampa Bay, but I just cannot count out Tom Brady in the playoffs. I just can't. And he didn't look all that good against New Orleans initially, but he came back and he was very above average, and that's what you need. So, switching gears to the conference championship, I'm picking the Packers over the Bucks. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be in the 30s. I think it's going to be something like Green Bay 38, Tampa Bay 35 or 31. So it's going to be in the 30s, and it's going to be a one-score victory, within one score. Now, here's the upset. I'm picking Buffalo over Kansas City. I like Kansas City. I don't dislike Kansas City. I really like Mahomes. I really like Andy Reid. I like the team. However, I like Buffalo more, baby. I like me some Josh Allen. Josh Allen is turning out to be slightly below Patrick Mahomes. I don't think Mahomes is that much better than Josh Allen anymore. I really don't. I think Josh Allen has arrived. Now, is he a top 10 quarterback? Yes. Is he a top 5 quarterback? No. I need to see him keep up this, because he's been on a tear the last, 10 or 12 games. He's been amazing. So I think Buffalo's a hot hand. I think Buffalo's going to go in Kansas City and do the upset. And I think it's going to be, it could be a high-scoring game too, because Buffalo has the offense that can keep up with them. And they have a good defense. So, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to say it's going to be in the 40s, 45, 42, something like that. It's going to be within one score. Both of these games are going to be close and high-scoring. I don't think either four of these teams' defenses are that good. I think out of the four, I think I would take Buffalo's defense and then maybe Green Bay's. But again, meh. So then we would have a Buffalo-Green Bay Super Bowl, and I'd have to think on that one, because my heart is telling me Buffalo is going to win it all. But let's pump the brakes on that one and talk about it when the time comes here. But let's move on to other subjects. I mean, we politics and sports, baby. This politics has it all. Not really, just those two things. What the fuck am I talking? Where the fuck is my dinner? I'm starving here. All right, got my dinner in my belly, and I'm ready to continue. You know what documentary series I just finished was The Vow on HBO. That's the NXIVM sex cult, or the NXIVM alleged sex cult, although it looks pretty sex cult-y to me. Pretty horrifying in a lot of ways. And it's always amazing to me what people will do to stay in a cult. Like, they're completely blind to the realities of what's going around them. However, this documentary is really one of the first ones where I feel like I should back up here. So the documentary is made by former NXIVM cult members, and some of them were very high ranking. It's kind of like that Scientology one they did, where a lot of former Scientologists were talking about the horrors of Scientology. A little bit like, I think he's actually, maybe it's the same producer. I don't know. Don't quote me on that bullshit. But anyway, the guy who made the documentary about 15, 20 years ago, What the F Do We Know? I remember watching that in high school. Like, it was a pretty big deal. He was in NXIVM, and then he was filming a lot of shit for NXIVM, for their website and from other promotional materials and whatnot. And anyway, so this is the first documentary series about a cult that I can really remember when it goes into why people join, why people stay in, and even now, where the founder and a lot of people that were high ranking are going to jail. They've already been found guilty of sex trafficking and rape. And, well, I don't know about the rape one. I guess I should find that one out. But definitely sex trafficking and brainwashing and coercion and blackmail and everything. But there's still people in it and defending it. The head guy who is making this documentary and who made the documentary about What the F Do We Know, I feel like I should get that guy's name, but it doesn't matter. And he's talking about no one joins a cult ever. No one has ever joined a cult willingly. And I thought about it, it's like, he's absolutely right. If you know it's a cult right away, why would you ever join? It's only when you're really inundated in it and you're living and breathing that cult ideology, it is everything that you have to do in life. That's when someone tells you, hey man, you're in a cult, well, this is your life. So this, your friend or whoever's telling you that it's a cult, he's being an asshole to you. Well, no, this is just a good way of living, you know. NXIVM was always branded as a self-help, a goal-achieving program. I'm drinking a latte here. And I gotta tell you, the first episode, there was a lot of video of Mark Raniere. It's spelled like Rainier, but it's not pronounced Rainier. Mark Raniere. And Keith Raniere is making a lot of sense. At least he was to me. And these were videos that were shown to potential new members. So you want to showcase the best. You want to showcase the best of the message to get as many people into this, you know, quote unquote program. And there was, and I really wish I could, you know what I should have done? I should have rewatched the first episode and wrote down what I was talking about, because now that I'm trying to remember, it's all a little hazy. You know, I'm smoking a little bit. But anyway, I'm going to butcher the messages here, but who cares? It's a sex cult. Who gives a fuck if I butcher their message? It was all about all the negative things in your life need to basically be looked at. And if you look at them in a certain way, you have to realize that certain energy goes into these negative emotions, like your phobias, depression, anxiety, insomnia sometimes. And to be perfectly honest, there were some things that Keith Raniere was saying that made a lot of sense when he's talking about if you have goals, but then you immediately say, I can't do them, and you just immediately squash them, well, that's given energy to those negative emotions. And if you take that energy, and it's all bullshit, but it sounds good. He's a good bullshitter. I'm surprised he wasn't in the Trump administration. And shit, there was a section where he quote unquote cured this guy's Parkinson's by doing something. And this whole thing about Keith Raniere is that he's a genius. Like, he's an actual scientist, and he's written this algorithm, this code, this equation on bettering yourself. And like I said, it made a lot of sense to me originally. But then once you get into, well, now you got to pay $1,000 to go to this session. And by the way, you're going to have to start wearing sashes. It's like a black belt in karate, but you have to, you know how you get a blue belt, a white belt, a green belt, whatever. You have to work your way up. That's when they would have lost me. So if they were telling me these great messages about bettering yourself and having success and try to be goal-oriented, whatever, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of making sense. But I'm still cautious. I'm just a cautious individual anyway. Whenever I see someone who smiles too much or is too happy, I immediately distrust them. No one's that happy. And so, psychopaths are that happy. But yeah, once they mentioned the cost and that I would have to wear sashes and work my way up, I would have just jumped up in the middle of the meeting and yelled, "Done!" And I would have left that motherfucker real quick. So, but I highly, highly, highly recommend this documentary series. It blew me away. And they're going to be a season 2, which I'm very excited about. Oh, before we move on to another documentary series that I finished, it was crazy to me how undiverse this NXIVM cult was. I saw no black people and I saw no Hispanic people. Well, besides the whole Mexico NXIVM compound. Fucking idiot, Angelo. But it was funny to me that I saw mostly white people. And then I saw a spattering of Asian and Indian, but no African American. I can't believe I said no Hispanic. There was tons of Hispanics. NXIVM had a giant compound in Mexico with like the ex-president's like JFK like son. So I just find it funny. I don't know if I've ever watched a cult documentary series, and I'm watching a lot of them, where there was a lot of black people in a cult. I don't know what that's all about. I don't know. Maybe I should research black cults. But anyway, let's move on. I'm not sure what the point of this rant was. I also just finished the Night Stalker series. Well, it's not about the hunt for the Night Stalker in the mid 80s. And that was some horrifying shit for another reason, because you're actually dealing with I don't know if I believe in good and evil people, because that brings up religious tones and stuff, and I just don't know if I believe in that stuff. But if there ever was someone who was evil, like born evil, let me rephrase. I don't think he was born evil. I'm talking about Richard Ramirez, of course, the Night Stalker, and the things he did and who he did them to. And just the lack of a pattern. I know we love our serial killer documentaries in this country, and so I've watched a lot of shit, like I know many of you have, about serial killers. And so there's a lot of common themes about serial killers when they're killing. Not this motherfucker. I'm not going to go into grisly detail here, because I'll leave that to the documentary. There was a few times where I thought of stopping the show and not watching it anymore, because some of it deals with children. I really, really wanted to turn off the first episode, actually. But I didn't. I powered through. And if you have a strong stomach and you don't watch it when you're trying to go to sleep, I would watch this shit during the day when the sun is out. And once it gets dark, don't watch that shit. Watch The Vow about sex cults and stuff. Don't watch about serial killer. But it was only 4 episodes. I would have liked it to be a little longer. I felt like I wanted to see 2 or 3 episodes about the trial and the jail time of Richard Ramirez. It was crazy to me that he died 8 years ago, and he did all his killing in the mid-'80s, and he got the death penalty, but he died in prison from cancer. Spoiler alert. And I remember thinking, like, why the fuck did this person who killed, that we know of, like 15 or 17 people that we know of, I mean, everyone assumes the number is much higher, and he was found guilty. By the way, the trial took years, which is it's so stupid, so bureaucratic. The evidence is there. Convict him in a week, give him the death penalty. And again, I don't like the death penalty. I truly don't like the idea of the government saying who can and cannot live. However, this guy should have died. And I don't know why it took him 40 years in prison to die. Was it 40? 30-something years. You would have thought, okay, the trial is over, he's guilty, give him a couple months to settle his affairs so he can smash all those crazy hot women that were lusting after him in the court. I mean, what is wrong with some of you whoas? I understand liking the bad boy, but this motherfucker will actually kill you and do horrible things while killing you. It doesn't just kill you. And these women are like, oh yeah, I like it. I mean, he was somewhat of a good-looking guy, don't get me wrong. I don't know what it is. A lot of serial killers, not the fat ones, the ones that are skinny, they tend to be somewhat easy on the eyes. And I understand why a lot of women are attracted to that. I'm sure a lot of dudes are too, but just knowing what this motherfucker did, these women were still like, oh yeah, stab me in my boobie. I'm like, what is wrong with you? I recommend the series. I wish it was longer. Oh yeah, I went on a wild tangent there. Yeah, why did it take so long to kill him? You think they would just put a bullet in his head a week after the trial? Or a couple months after the trial, after he smashes the crazy gashes and whatnot. Okay, yeah. Is there a worse word for a vagina than a gash? That's so grisling. It just evokes violence. A gash, like a stab wound. Ugh. I will no longer use that word on the podcast unless I get high and forget, and therefore I can't be held responsible for my verbiage. I think we have time to read something from my journal. We haven't done this in a while, and I'll be honest, I haven't looked at this in a couple weeks, so this is completely new to me. First one. My opinion, I like how it starts already. My opinion, if I was in charge of remapping America, who's in and who's out? Get your shit together, Texas and Florida. I would trade Alaska to Canada, but I need to think out what I would get in return. Oh, I think this was supposed to be a podcast idea. Well, fuck it. It's a stupid idea. So, yeah, I don't think we need the current setup of the states. I think if you make Puerto Rico and D.C. a state, we don't need both Virginias. You make one. Same thing with the Carolinas. One. We don't need duplicate states for, let's be honest, kind of shitty states. Shitty in my opinion because I've never been there. I don't know shit about the Virginias or the Carolinas. Is that there's only two that have duplicate? Oh no, the Dakotas. Oh, yeah, merge those motherfuckers. Yeah, so let's see. So you got rid of 3 states right there. So now we're down to 47. If you get Puerto Rico and DC, you back up to 49. Alaska, I when I wrote that, I was probably made a lot of sense to me, but I think Alaska is important to this country for reasons that I'm too stupid to understand. I think isn't there oil there, or I know there's a lot of wood, so maybe we're getting a lot of timber. I don't know what Alaska provides us. It's very close to Canada. In fact, it's right next door. And like Sarah Palin, that who said that she could see Russia. So I would go a bidding war. I tell you what, I would give it. I would prefer to give it to Canada because they're better allies. Because I don't like Russia and I disloathe Putin with the heat of 1,000 black suns. I would tell Putin, hey, leave the Ukraine, leave all those other Eastern Blocker states alone, and we'll just give you Alaska. And then I'd work out a treaty with Canada to be like, yeah, watch these motherfuckers with us. I don't know if that would work, because Russia would have to sign peace, and like we'd have to actually enforce it, maybe draw down some of the nukes, if Russia even wants Alaska. Canada, you would think, would want Alaska, because Alaska is probably like a metropolis compared to some of their cities. Again, I want to see more of Canada. I don't know much about them. And, yeah, Texas and Florida. That's a cliche. I think Texas is all right. I think sometimes it gets a bad rap. I would actually talk to Texas about, do you want to leave? I would actually have a vote, because they're one of the states that talks openly, candidly, and frequently about seceding still, which is the Lone Star State. What are you going to do? I made a dynamite latte this time. I added a lot of shit to this one, too. It has turmeric, has a little bit of vanilla in it. It's got that good half and half. And I used, what the fuck is that, Trader Joe's coffee? It's like a small lot, medium dark roast. I don't know. I think the bag is like Halloween colored. I don't know. It's an excellent latte. That's my point. So Texas, I would negotiate with. Now Florida, if I could just take a giant like saw and just saw Florida off, North America, just let it drift off into the ocean. I would see if Spain or France wants it back. I forget who we got Florida from. I think we got it from the French. Is that who we got it from? I used to be so smart. And then I became an adult. I've forgotten the basics. Let's see. Was Florida originally a swamp? Fuck you, Google. Spanish or French? Florida's written history begins with the arrival of European Spanish. Yep, okay. What did I say, French or Spanish? Sacre bleu, who don't know? So, what was I talking about Florida? Oh, yeah. See if they want it back. See if Cuba wants to expand. I don't know. And I would also go to some other, like, island, kind of like Polynesian islands near Hawaii and whatnot. I'd be like, hey, what do you guys want to do? Hey, Virgin Islands, what do you want to do? Countries like Fiji. I can't think, guys. I am fucked up. But yeah, it'd be cool if I could remap America. I would bring in some good diverse states, and some of the states that we've had a little too long, we could merge them. That way we'd have one Carolina, one Dakota, one the other one Virginia, and maybe we can get something in return from Alaska. if we give Alaska to the Canadians, maybe we'd get Nova Scotia. That'd be kind of cool. And as a joke, I would go to Greenland and be like, I know Trump wanted to get you. We were joshing around. But let's be serious. Do you want to help us out? It would never happen, but I think it'd be funny. I know I'd have to research countries that are like, should they be countries? Well, now I sound colonialism. Colonial. I think the whites have already done that from Europe. And they found all these new countries. Do they really deserve to be countries? See, it's in our DNA, people. We just are conquerors. Just in my brain, I'm thinking what I could do to reshape the world. It's just fun. It's just fun. All right, do we have time? I don't think we have time for another one. I think this one's already running long, and I still wanted to do something kind of special for closing here. So let's move on to getting the hell out of here. Finishing this mofo up. So yes, in closing, I just wanted to talk a little bit about a brilliant op-ed in CNN, of all places, that Bernie Sanders wrote about the incoming Joe Biden administration. And I just want to read a little bit about it. So let me skip to it here. Let me skip over the talking about Trump, blah, 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 blah. Here we go. As a result of the pandemic, tens of millions of our fellow citizens have lost their jobs and incomes. Hunger is at its highest levels in decades, and 40 million could be on the brink of eviction when the federal moratorium expires at the end of January. I think Joe Biden has extended that. While more than 24 million people in our country have tested positive for COVID-19, tens of millions of Americans are uninsured or underinsured. Amid so much economic suffering and despair, when many Americans have lost faith in their government, and when millions are prepared to accept lies about the outcome of the presidential election in 2020, it's imperative that Democrats pass a bold and aggressive economic agenda within the first 100 days of Joe Biden's presidency. And I believe Biden has done some of these things, but this is Bernie Sanders' opinion on what should be done. Now is not the time to think small. It is the time to think big and to restore faith among the working families, black, white, Latino, Asian, and Native American. Then in a democratic society, government can respond to their needs. Failure, and this is one of my favorite parts, failure to adequately respond to the economic desperation in America today will undermine the Biden administration and likely lead Democrats to lose their thin majorities in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate in 2022. Democrats suffered significant losses in '94, 2 years after Bill Clinton's victory, and in 2010, 2 years after President Obama's victory. We must not repeat these mistakes. The danger we face would not be going in too big or spending too much, but in going too small and leaving the needs of American people behind. And then he talks about the Republicans saying they're willing to work with us, blah, 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 blah. The Senate's 60-vote threshold to pass major legislation has become an excuse for inaction. Hear, hear, Bernie! But let's be clear. We have the tools to overcome these procedural hurdles. As incoming chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, thank Christ you are, Bernie, I will use a process known as budget reconciliation that will allow us to pass comprehensive legislation with only 51 votes. And then he points out this is not a radical idea. Republican did that. And he's going through some examples of that. But here we go. This is where he gets to what he would do, basically. First, we must increase the direct payments passed by Congress in December from $600 to $2,000 for every working class adult and their children. On this issue, Biden, Trump, Majority Leader Schumer, House Speaker Pelosi, and several Republicans in the House and Senate, and undoubtedly millions of struggling Americans would agree. But given the enormous crisis facing the country, that this is not enough. Through reconciliation, we must pass a major COVID relief bill that expands emergency unemployment benefits to $600 a week, provide aid to state and local government to prevent mass layoffs, enact hazard pay for frontline workers, and addresses the crisis of homelessness and ensures that no one in America goes hungry or is evicted. During this crisis, we must provide emergency health care to all by requiring Medicare to pay the medical bills of the uninsured and underinsured. Hear, hear, baby. And he continues, through reconciliation, we must make sure that unemployment benefits during this crisis period are not taxable. Oh, what a great thought. So that workers don't get hit with a huge tax bill they didn't expect on April 15th. Moreover, we need to create millions of good-paying jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. Oh, fuck yeah. And it brings a tear to my eye because I truly, truly, truly think Bernie Sanders has been the president this country has needed for the past 20 years, if not longer. So And on that happy, joyous note of what could have been, and again, Bernie Sanders' op-ed on CNN, and I only read a little bit of it. I got about a quarter of it. So anyway, I love y'all. I'll talk to you guys after the playoffs this weekend. And yeah, keep it sleazy.